Good morning. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Good evening to me.
Is it good evening? What time is
It is
in
good.
the Philippines?
It's 10 o'clock. It's not that late.
All right. Hold on. I'm just going to adjust just a tad.
Yeah.
Thank you, first and foremost, for ending your evening with us here at New York One's On Stage Matinee.
My pleasure.
I also have to point out that this is going to go on my podcast on iHeartRadio,
Okay.
so folks can hear you on the radio as well.
Excellent.
So, how are things in the Philippines? What's going on where you're at right now?
It looks like, every day one of my activities is to check what the numbers look like. In the world ranking, we're not exactly up there, along with, some of the best countries' responses to this pandemic. But the numbers seem to be steadying and hovering around like a certain number. So that gives me hope that maybe we'll get a slow and steady decline. At least that's what I'm hoping. The numbers aren't big by any stretch of the imagination. I guess for us, it's pretty huge because we're comparing ourselves to our neighbors in the region, who are just crushing it with their responses, where it's now like single-digit infections, very few deaths, if at all. My brother lives in Malaysia. He's in Kuala Lumpur, and they're like in the top 10 as far as the coronavirus response.
Wow.
So his family has just joined him from here. And he hasn't seen them for 6 months. As far as the rest of the country, there are places that are doing better. I guess the fact that the Philippines is an archipelago, I think that helps that, because there's so many islands all separated by water. So it's not so easy for the virus to travel, I guess, unless it takes a boat.
Yeah.
Things could be better, as with everything. Things could be better. But we were having this discussion at the dinner table, and even though our ranking is not all that great, we're not doing as badly as a few other places.
Yeah. And how's your family doing? How's your daughter? How's your family?
She's fine. She's actually thriving in this pandemic because she doesn't get to go outside. She gets to distance herself from adolescent drama. She's doing well in school. She's doing better now that she's not so much isolated, but is able to focus. She still gets to socialize with her friends online, but she seems to enjoy the distance from everything and everyone. So, everybody has their own way of dealing with it, and she's dealing with it well. So she's fine. Everybody here seems to be okay.
Are you playing teacher too, or is she totally self-contained?
She's self-contained. She has her teacher. It's she is in school, so she has her classmates. They're in a Zoom chat and Zoom classes together, and she's going through the process of putting together her final project for her 8th grade. She's in high school next year. So she's been working with a mentor. I volunteered to help towards the back end near the completion of the project. So that's been going well. So she's got a few things on her plate, but she does miss performing. She loves theater. She loved doing it when she did Matilda a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, you know what? The situation is what the situation is, and there really is nothing that anybody can do about it. All we can do is do our part.
Yeah.
Kids her age, I think under the age of 20, I think, are not really allowed to go out very much. So she's been mostly at home.
Good.
I've been out a couple times, but she seems to be perfectly happy at home. So I guess everybody deals with it differently, and she's been dealing with it very well.
Yeah. I have to say, as horrible as this situation is, and so many lives have been lost, and it
Right.
is devastating, to kind of live in a world the way we're living in it. But for those of us who are having these little glimmers of hope, there is some silver lining along the way. I certainly have my silver lining. What's been your silver lining during this pandemic thus far?
Skills that I didn't think I had have been learned. I mean, I've been baking sourdough very regularly here at home.
I've been seeing the pictures.
Yes, I mean, yeah, and I'm very proud of my bakes. There are a few of us. Well, there's one other friend that does this, so we communicate regularly as well and watch each other's bakes and share resources and research here and there. Like, here's a YouTube video that you should watch. That kind of stuff. And I've given it to friends. I'm selling a little bit of it, just so that I can keep buying flour. Yeah, I'm shameless. But you never know. Things happen in quarantines like this.
Yeah.
And so far, the folks that have received the bread have really liked it. So it's very encouraging. And I figured, you know what, if this was trash, then I wouldn't let anybody even taste it. But I'm very proud of it.
You have to share the recipe with me. You have to share your recipe with me, because I'm discovering the kitchen as well during this time. So
yeah, and then I was able to replicate my grandmother's flan recipe, which my mom really likes. She's not so much into bread, but she does like the flan.
Love it.
What else? I've learned how to make souffles, and so that was one of the first things. I started from one of the most difficult things that you could do in the kitchen, and so everything is kind of downhill. So it's like, okay, what else? What else could I possibly do? What I do have right now, as opposed to what I don't have, which is a busy touring schedule and getting to travel and sing in front of people. That's been the tougher part of this whole pandemic, is that I'm not able to do that which I really love. Mm-hmm. However, the rest is good. The rest has been really good. So I'm not really in any position to complain. So I'm in a good spot.
You just recently released a song. I've been listening to it, called Dream Again, which is so beautiful.
Thank you.
And, it is in support of To Help the Actors Fund. Mm-hmm. Talk about how this project came to be.
Okay, so this project was the brainchild of my manager, Josh Pultz, who sent me a text message saying that he was thinking of commissioning a song that, spoke of this situation that we're in, but that we were also looking hopefully into the future. And I said yes. And so he called on two friends, Daniel Edmonds, who is a pianist and musical director in Australia. He's based in Sydney, and he's been my pianist whenever I go tour out there. A really, really lovely human, amazing musician. And there's also Josh's friend Blair Bodine, who wrote it from her parents' house in Vermont. And it was quite the international crew. We tapped on people in Australia, Los Angeles, New York, Malaysia. Of course, I'm here in Manila. Josh is in New York. There's Vermont. So it's a pretty wide spread of cities and continents, and of all of us just coming together to create this thing. And my daughter did the did the album cover, so she put her illustration skills to work. And so that makes me very proud as her mom to have done it. And the feedback on the song seems to be really positive and really good. And I'm hoping that that the Actors Fund is able to get a good amount of money as a result of it.
I have to say, you are, like you mentioned, in Manila, but you are part of this community. You are truly one of ours, and kudos to you, Lea, because you are always there to support this community. These are your people. Even,
Totally.
Being thousands and thousands of miles away. I mean, just talk about why that's important to you to support this family that you have here in New York.
It seems like my entertainment industry family is wide. It's actually pretty big. It's not just the Broadway community. There are communities, especially here in Manila, and it's not just limited to musical theater either. And the entertainment industry all over the world has been hit very hard because people can't go out to attend live events, can't go out to watch concerts, watch theater, and that is extremely heartbreaking because for me, theater is one of those things that is incredibly healing and soothing, both as a performer and as somebody who goes and watches and patronizes theater. Like I go to New York every year to see shows and not just to work. So to have that taken away and to have all of this livelihood taken away from so many people that I know and love and have worked with over the years, it's painful. Actually, that's an understatement. It's devastating. And so it was important for me to do something to help because it's necessary, it's the right thing to do, because it is my family, it's my industry, it's my people, it's and I know that there are a lot of people who are hurting from this industry. And I know that there are a lot of people that are doing everything that they can to try and help. So this is my little effort to try and do that.
Yeah. On a lighter note, I need to mention Mulan is back in the spotlight.
Yes, she is.
I mean, how does it feel years later to see, a project that is obviously near and dear to your heart, resurface for a whole new generation?
It's a trip. It really is. And it's a very different Mulan from what was released in 1998, from what our group got to work on for that specific film, which is a musical in the vein of many of the others that preceded it, like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, Little Mermaid. So it was one of many animated musicals that came out. This Mulan is different. It's in its execution, in a lot of the storytelling. It's not a musical anymore, but you do hear reflection a lot. and I'm actually kind of thrilled. Like Merle Dandridge sent me a text after she saw the movie, and she calls me Mom, and she's like, Mom, your legacy is all over this movie. I have not ugly cried more than I did watching this. I was so happy that she got to see it, and so happy that was her takeaway. It's exciting that finally people get to see it, and I'm not going to spoil one of the cameos that happens during the film. No, I'm not in it at all. I am not in it. So I am not the cameo you should be watching out for. But reflection is everywhere. And reflection's everywhere. And I cried every time I heard it. It's like I cannot look upon it with any objectivity whatsoever. I can't.
Well, it's your song. It's your song. It's one of
Exactly.
many songs that you created and have made iconic over the years. So not just Milan, but also Jasmine from Aladdin. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you do realize you are one of the lucky ones to have given voice to two major Disney characters. I mean, what's it like when you show up at a Disney resort or a Disney park? Is it like they roll out the red carpet for you?
No, they don't. No, of course they don't. I mean, I do have my passes to go to the park. Not that I'll be using them anytime soon. Yeah. But I do get passes, and I do get to go into the parks without having to pay, but I still have to line up and still have to pay for the food. But just getting into the park for free is a really nice perk, and it's such a lovely thing that I'm able to share with my family. That we are able to just go whenever we like. Obviously, right now that is not the case, and I'm going to wait until maybe 2021, 22 for when it's actually safe to make a return. By then, my daughter will be around 16. Close to 17 years old.
I remember when she was a little girl. That's
I know.
crazy.
She was. Yeah, she's about as tall as me now, and she's still growing. She's got quite the mouth on her, which makes me kind of proud. Very outspoken, very articulate.
Like her mom.
And well, thank you. No, I think she's more so than me. I was a kid at 14. She's a bit more savvy with a lot of things. Really deep thinker, which I was not. And I have some of the best conversations with her, just hanging out here at home. And she was never one for the thrill rides. So even as a kid, she wasn't one of those fearless children that, once you get to the height requirement, you'll ride a roller coaster like California Screamin'. She was like, nope, not it, not doing it. Nope, not interested.
Not for me.
Not for her. She knows what she likes. She knows what she doesn't like. She avoids what she doesn't like. She stays away from anything that scares her, that would frighten her. It's like, wow. And this was her at about 10 or 12. So she's an interesting child. But yeah, she's not itty bitty anymore.
Beautiful.
She's not.
Beautiful family.
She's a great kid. Thank you.
Now, I was listening on my walk this morning with my dog. I was playing the best of your music, of course, to get ready for this interview. And I was listening to one of your concert albums. And I didn't realize how young you were when you started getting involved with musical theater. And listening to this album in particular, I heard about your audition for The King and I, which you can tell everyone here. But I mean, you really were destined to be a star. You were destined to be in this business at a very young age.
I don't know about destined to be a star. I think the whole star thing is to be a byproduct of.
I can say that.
Thank you very much. I think I was just one of the lucky ones. Perhaps I was destined to do theater and to perform because I can't imagine myself doing anything else. But as far as a lot of the other stuff, it's almost like there was a confluence of factors and circumstances that enabled all of that to happen. And perhaps it was just dumb luck that a lot of that stuff happened. But definitely, I think I was meant to be getting up on a stage and singing in front of people. Because that never really gave me any anxiety, even when things would get pretty bad. I mean, there are going to be exceptions, obviously. But it was still the place where I felt the most safe, where it feels like home, where I feel the most free. I mean, I don't do great in crowded places. I mean, I just don't. I mean, if I see a crowd of people on the sidewalk as I'm going through Times Square, I will try to avoid that as much as, even if it means going into the street and getting hit by something, then that's what I'm going to have to do. But it feels perfectly safe being on a stage and getting to, sing music that's really close to my heart. And I guess the comfort level is so high because I've been doing this for so long, and it feels like one of the most natural place for me to plant myself.
Yeah.
It's just it's on stage, it might be intimidating to some people. It may give people anxiety, but real life gives me more anxiety than performing.
Yeah. And just to clarify, for your audition for The King and I when you were a kid, your audition material was?
Do Re Mi from The Sound of Music. And it's a show that I eventually got to do a few years after that. Yeah.
Wait, what about the Girl Scout speech?
Oh, yeah. I recited my... Because the director was looking at me. She was asking me if I knew any poems or nursery rhymes, which a lot of 6-year-olds would know. I said, I don't know any of that, but I just had my Girl Scout investiture. Can I recite my oath or something like that? And they said, sure. Yeah, you can do that. I guess they wanted to see how loud I could get. So I raised my hand up with the Girl Scout salute, and I proceeded to recite my oath. And that was that. I was told to leave the stage. And then I got called back to recite the speech that Princess Ying Yawalak would say at the end of the show. And that's the part I eventually got. So,
Booked it.
Yeah, booked it. First audition ever. Booked it.
Love it. Okay, we're going to fast forward a little bit because I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but, Miss Saigon is, one of those shows. I saw you do it on Broadway, and
Right.
It changed my life. Did I ever tell you this? We used to, at the DeLella household, every year,
No, I
around
don't think you ever told me this.
Easter randomly, we would take a trip up to New York. I lived in Philadelphia with my family, so
Right.
New York was not that far away. But every year at Easter time, we would take a trip up to New York to see Miss Saigon. It was like
Okay.
Easter Mass was on Sunday, the Friday before, the Thursday before, we'd go take a trip to see Miss Saigon. Or I guess it would be the Wednesday, it would be the matinee. Because
Right.
I was so obsessed with this show. So I know a lot about Miss Saigon. I know our viewers and our listeners know a lot about Miss Saigon. But give me some Miss Saigon scoop, or just something that a lot of people don't know that we
Oh my
should
gosh.
know or could know.
I don't know. I think, honestly, I don't know. I have to say, though, I must have sprained my ankle on that rake at least twice. Because you're running in high heels, and the rake on both sides of the Atlantic, I think it was whatever the maximum allowable rake was. And when I stepped up on that stage, I'm like, you felt like you were pitching forward because of just how steep that incline was. I don't know how we did it. In the London production, it was a little easier because there would be these platforms, like these little mini stages that would roll in and roll out. So when you were on one of those, you were at least, the flooring was parallel to the actual ground. It wasn't parallel to the rake. So it was like this, and then the rake was like that. So that's what it looked like. So I guess in its own way, I was saved from more severe injuries that many of my other colleagues suffered, because if they were on the rake for any extended period of time, then things just get out of alignment. I mean, PT was our friend. And when I went back to the show in 1999, that's when I started seeing the massage therapist every Thursday. I would put my name down. I would come to the theater early and just lay on the table and get myself worked on. And I didn't realize just how out of alignment my whole body was.
Yeah.
From just from doing the show, just from the repetitive nature of doing a show 6 times a week. The track of Kim is it's 6 times a week, no more than that, because it's just nuts.
It's a beast. A beast.
Because it's truly a beast, and I'm so sorry to anybody that's ever done it after I've left the show. I feel like I have to issue an official apology to every actor that's ever played the role of Kim, only because it's so darn hard. But yeah, my physical body was just not in greatest place. I mean, I was fit because I had to work out because those costumes were not forgiving. And so I worked out every day. But even despite whatever I could do, it was still just, so there would always be someone who was ready, willing, and able to put everything back in its place. And I was thankful. And I had a much better run when I went back in 99 than I did probably any time before.
Yeah.
Because the pressure's all off. You just go into work. It's
You
not
got
about
the Tony.
I had the Tony. The review, my notices were good, and I was already building a nice, solid career for myself. So for me, it was just a matter of. It felt like I needed to exorcise, I guess, whatever demons I might have held on to or might have just hovered over my head from having done the show so young and having all of that on my shoulders at a young age. It was nice to be able to go back, revisit the show, and see it for the material, for the storytelling, and to get all of the other stuff off of my back. And it was an incredible experience. And it's thanks to that I found a renewed love for the show, because I didn't love it for a long time after I left it because of so much stuff. But when I went back and I was in the company of some amazing people, Will Chase was one of them, Margaret Ann Gates was playing Ellen, Leonard Joseph was playing John, Billy Porter came in during that time to play John as well, and he was in the original company, so it was really great for him to come and do it. As far as other scoop, I don't know that there's any scoop though.
Well,
there were always chess and backgammon games in the basement, right under the stage. Directly beneath the stage, there was always there were always people playing chess. I learned how to play backgammon from doing the show. I don't play very well, but it was nice to sit down and learn from people that were doing it regularly. And backstage, for the most part, was happy.
yeah.
In New York. At least I can say that for New York. That backstage at Miss Saigon in New York City in 1999, actually for most of its run, was a very happy place. Maybe because there was so much tragedy happening on stage that backstage had to balance it out. Yeah. And everybody did. Everybody really made the effort to, crack a joke, to be there for one another. Mm-hmm. I never felt more protected and in a company with so much good humor and support. So that company in 99 was just stellar. Most of that company, I think, came from the Second National. Yeah.
What was life like for you when you first came to New York? What was that, in 1991 to do the show?
91, yeah.
Was that your first time in New York? Was that your first time living? What was life like for you knowing that you were carrying this big Cameron Mackintosh musical? I mean, the buzz on the show, there was so much buzz, of course, but the buzz on the show, when it opened, it was like, oh my gosh, let's go see this helicopter come down from the ceiling.
It's nuts.
Amazing love story. What was life like for you?
Just imagine the buzz of Hamilton. That's kind of what it was like for us in 1991. And there was always such an electric atmosphere in the theater because the expectations were high, and I guess they were met by everybody in the company, by the sets, by the helicopter, by the music. And it was a hit that ran for almost 10 years in New York, more than 10 years in London. And it was just so beloved, and there are so many of us from the Philippines that became a part of it that will always be grateful for the opportunity and for the family that we were able to form as a result of the show. So many of us are still in touch with one another and are always genuinely concerned. It's really a big family. But yeah, it was a crazy time. I remember just being nuts. And it was nuts leading all the way up to the Tonys, for darn sure. I don't know how I survived it all, but thankfully my mom was there for support, and she didn't leave my side for a while. But yeah, I just remember it being a totally crazy time.
I love that. You also have a strong, that was your introduction, of course, to Cameron McIntosh, and you have a strong connection to Les Mis, literally around the world, and, you know, playing the role of Eponine and Fantine.
Right.
I'll never forget recording on VHS the 10th anniversary concert, which you did at Royal Albert Hall.
Oh my gosh, that concert's so epic.
It truly is.
It's still so epic. It is so epic, yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
it was the first time, that I think the show was ever done in concert like
that did set the standard and set the bar. Cameron totally, you know, for one who was thought outside the box for such a long time, that was the first of, you know, so much, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I do remember we rehearsed for a while. I think we rehearsed for, I want to say, a week. Maybe a little more than that, but we definitely took our time. It's a big show.
Yeah.
I know. For the O2, I was in London for about 2 weeks, preparing for it, and I'm on stage for 25 minutes, and I'm in London for 2 weeks. For Eponine, feels about the same, and everyone was really in it to win it. But what a trip to get to hear Colm Wilkinson every single day in rehearsal, to get to see and watch Philip Quast just be a genius as Javert, and Ruthie Henshaw, with whom I did Miss Saigon in London, just be so beautiful. And to meet and get to work with Judy Kuhn and Michael Ball and all of these amazing people, I'm like, what is my life? God, I'm like 24 years old in the company of these amazing, talented people. Yeah, I just remember being incredibly fortunate, but that I had to also be incredibly professional and do my job and do it well. I remember after our afternoon dress rehearsal, I went as far up as I could go, because somebody told me to do this, to go all the way up to the balcony for perspective, to be able to look down onto the stage just to see exactly who we were performing for and how it was going to look.
Wow.
From all the way up in the cheap seats. So I went up as high. I think there was one more balcony to go up, and I'm like, nah, I'm done. I'm fine here. So I looked down, and it's intimidating to think of it.
Yeah.
But then when you're on that other side, and when you're like in one of those seats looking down, you have this feeling of anticipation, this feeling that something good is going to happen tonight. And so I went back to my dressing room. I had dinner, and I got myself some food and got some rest to prepare. And I just remember feeling like this was going to be a really special night. And it was. And I was like, I am representing so many Asian performers doing this. Yeah. I might have been, the Iron Chef chairman was there representing the Japanese production. So he sang in the finale. But for the main show, I was like the only Asian performer. So I felt like I have to do this right, because many of my peoples are going to be watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very high stakes, but at the same time, what a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
Just incredibly wonderful.
And preserved forever. Forever, which is amazing.
Yeah, and airs on PBS during how many pledge weeks now? I don't know.
Exactly.
Just keep airing it.
Exactly.
And I'm only too happy to help out. I mean, sure.
Yeah. You really are such a Broadway baby, Lea. Do you have a dream role? Do you have a dream Broadway role that you would love to perform?
Oh, wow. After Love It, after having done it here in Manila after playing
Manila.
This Is Love, and I'm like, where do I go from there? I mean, what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I may have to turn to Sondheim again and again
Yeah.
for a lot of the roles I'll get to do as someone, you know, on her way to 50. I mean, I turned 50 in February.
You don't age either. You do not age.
Thank you.
Of course, I'm calculating. You know, I saw the show. I mean, you know, I remember the Tonys, 1991. Like,
Yeah, it was 20. Yeah.
you do not age.
Thank you. It's nice. It's nice being Asian right now. So, I mean, whatever. Maybe it's the humidity. It's the rainy season here in the Philippines. So, and I moisturize. And there's a place that I go to regularly that really helps me out, and in that, you know, with the aesthetic part of me. But yeah, as far as the roles go, it's things like, I don't know, Joanne in Company, maybe in a few more years. Mama Rose down the line.
Yes.
Maybe Sally in Follies, just to get to sing that song.
Yeah.
Just to get to sing Losing My Mind. It's like, that would be so much fun.
I'm already seeing
Yeah.
another concert for you, like that, like with these songs with these shows that you're listing. We can do another Broadway concert. I'll be the first to buy.
We probably could. Yeah. Totally. And I mean, eventually these songs are going to be added to the repertoire. Whether I do get to play the roles or not, I think those are songs that will have to get added. But then again, in concert, I can pretty much sing whatever I want. I still sing A Whole New World in concert. I still sing I Give My Life for You. And taken out of context, there are songs that are great for a woman of any age to sing anyway. It's fine.
Yeah.
Especially I Give My Life for You. It's a beast of a song. However, and Billy Porter points this out, you can't start that song from the end. You can't. You have to. He's, you know, and I think he was telling me a story about him teaching a student, and that was the song they were working on. And I think, where were we? I don't know where we were. We were in LA. And I was performing, and after a rehearsal, I think that he and I had this conversation. He said, "Yeah, I was teaching this one girl how to, you know, teaching her I Give My Life for You. And her first pass," he said, was like she was going too big right away. And he's like, "Ooh, child."
You got to build to it.
Exactly. It's one of those songs where you have to start from a place that's comfortable, because you've got a long way to go before you get to that really big ending. And I would normally sing that either seated or kneeling. Don't know how I did it, but if my voice teacher said that if I positioned myself properly, then there was no issue. As long as I didn't hunch over, as long as I didn't compress my instrument, then I would be fine. So she, you know, so he and I would be talking. And I was like, oh, this poor girl. Oh, this poor girl. But it's not an impossible thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to hear it more sung by other people in concert. It's not as intimidating as Defying Gravity, honestly.
Yeah.
It's, you know, there are more difficult sings, but it's also, it's not the most showy. It's not here's my high note, it's coming. It's not one of those songs. It's a storytelling song that happens
dramatic.
to have, there's an E in the song. I mean, can't choose whatever heaven grants, you're hitting an E, which is the same note as a lot of this other stuff that people seem to enjoy. So it's a great storytelling song. It's a challenge for a vocalist. It's a challenge for an actor. But it's also really fulfilling and satisfying to perform because of the story that is being told. Just get your head out of the Vietnamese prostitute is singing this song. It's like, no, it's a mom singing this song to her child. And of the lengths that she would go for this human being. And that's all it is. And it's, taken out of context, you can be anybody, because it's a common experience. It's a common human experience amongst everyone